This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I'm going to have Shabbos. I want to share with you something very brief, which is important to understand and very practical as well. So our great forefather Avraham Avinu excelled in many areas, but especially in the midah of Chesed. Avraham was the paragon and paradigm of Chesed. Pasuk says in Micha, Titein emes liYaakov, Chesed liAvraham. Chesed was Avraham's specialty. In fact, Shlomo HaMelech says about someone who is what we call roideif tzedakah v'chesed, someone who pursues kindness. Who is Shlomo referring to when he says someone who pursues kindness? So the Medrash says in Parsha Nun Ches Ois Tes, Ze Avraham. Of all the people in history, who could we consider the roideif chesed? No one other than Avraham Avinu exemplified this characteristic of roideif tzedakah. Now the Medrash continues. And what was Avraham Avinu's most outstanding act of chesed that he ever did? So drum roll, please. Let's ask ourselves, what would you consider Avraham Avinu's greatest act of chesed? Yeah, maybe the fact that he risked his life to save life, and he was loyal to his nephew. Or you know what the Medrash says? Maybe on the third day of Avram's Milah, when he was suffering and reeling in pain, and he was sitting, he's 99 years old, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Hoitzi Chama Min Artika, and it was a very hot day, and it's unbearable outside, but Avraham Avinu didn't want anyone else to bother, and he did everything himself, and he ran to them, and he begged them, please come and enjoy a meal, and he shechted 3 cows, and he gave each one the tongue, and he gave each one mustard. And he waited on them like a waiter, and he's doing all this while he's suffering. That's chesed. That's not the example the Medrash gives. Says the Medrash, the greatest act of chesed that Avraham Avinu ever did was v'achrei chen kavar Avraham es Sarah. Avraham buried his wife in the Maras HaMachpelah. That the greatest act of kindness that Avraham Avinu did was that he buried his wife. Are you serious? Seriously? That was Avraham Avinu's greatest act of chesed? It's his wife. What's he going to do? Leave her on the side of the road? What's the shviger going to say if he did that? It's his wife. He has to bury her. That was his most outstanding act of chesed. It seems rather ordinary. It's a nice thing to do, but who wouldn't do it? Why is that Avraham Avinu's greatest act of kindness that he ever did? It would seem like, in the scheme of things, after all we know about Avraham's chesed, it would not seem to be the act of chesed. Comes of Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the author of Slabotka. The author of Slabotka, who the theme of chesed is very prominent in the Sefer Or HaTzafon, and the author of Slabotka establishes the following principle in the midah of chesed. We know that, it's Kedai to point out, much of the Torah that we have today is due to the author of Slabotka. Many of the main yeshivas, whether it's here in America or in Eretz Yisrael, are because of the influence of the author of Slabotka. Lakewood, Rav Aaron Kotler, was a student of the author of Slabotka. Shiva Chaim Berlin, which was founded by Rav Hutner, is the Talmud of the author of Slabotka. Ner Yisrael, Baltimore, Rav Ruderman was a Talmud of the author of Slabotka. Tar Vadas, also Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, was a Talmud of the author, and Ma Yeshiva, Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim, the Rosh Yeshiva's father, Zecher Tzedek Levrach, Rav David Leibowitz. In the yeshiva, they consider him the primary disciple of the author, also a student of the Yad Sola, and also a lot of the Torah we have in Eretz Yisrael, be it Chevron, be it other yeshivas, were all branches of the Slabotka yeshiva. Well, the author of Slabotka says as follows. Rav Miller was a Talmud of the author. Comes the author and he says the following yesod. Let's say I see somebody who needs help. So I want to help them. I want to be nice. Why do you want to be nice? Because I'm a nice guy. And I help them. It's been very nice, but it's not chesed. Let's say I see someone, he's in a bad matzav, and I feel bad for them, and it makes me feel good to help them. Okay, very nice, but that's not chesed. What is chesed? Chesed is one thing. Chesed is on a completely different plane. Chesed is the way that we emulate Hashem. Hashem created a world. It's a world of kindness. It's a world of happiness. It's a world of enjoyment. We come into this world. We eat. We drink. We sit together. We enjoy each other's company. We see in color. We taste thousands of tastes. We see thousands of sights. It's a world of happiness. Obviously, the greatest chesed and the greatest happiness and the greatest enjoyment is Olam Haba. One moment of Olam Haba is greater than all the pleasures of this world. But in the overall scheme of things, Hashem created us for chesed. And therefore, I'll ask the following question. What is the ultimate chesed Hashem wants to bestow upon us? Olam Haba. That's why Hashem created us. For the world to come. So I have a great idea, Hashem. How about let's give Hashem some eitzah. Hashem, if you created us for Olam Haba and that's the greatest happiness, I have a great idea. So just put us there. Why go through this world? After all, this world is like a cheap imitation of pleasure and happiness until we get to the real thing. So just put us there. Why do we have to go through this difficult world first? The answer is, Hashem is so magnanimous and so kind that He understands that if, let's say, you have a poor man, you have an ani, and he's desperate, he can't get a job, and he comes, he knocks on your door. You said, oh, what do you need? You need a suit, here's a suit. You need food, here's food. You need a job, here's a job. And you give the ani, you make him a millionaire. Is he going to feel good about it? If he's a sensitive person, he's not going to feel good about it. He's going to feel like he just got a freebie. And he's going to be embarrassed. The Kabbalah calls it nama d'chsufa, embarrassed bread. In other words, a person has a sense of self-worth and dignity that they want to feel that whatever they have in this world, they earn it and they deserve it and they worked for it. And that is what gives a person satisfaction, not the freebie and not the gift. Therefore Hashem knows, I could put you straight in Olam Haba, but you're not going to feel good about it. So therefore, first I put you in this world, you earn your Olam Haba, and this way, when you get to Olam Haba, you'll be able to enjoy it and be satisfied. That means, let's think very carefully, the real full chesed of Hashem is not just to give chesed, but to give chesed in a way where the person feels that the benefactor is not doing me a favor. I earned it, I deserve it. So if you really want to emulate Hashem, and you have somebody who his car broke down. So, I'll help you. But don't you have a job? Yeah, don't worry. I'm giving up $1 million to help you. So how's the guy going to feel that you helped him? He's going to feel, like he had a take. He's going to feel like a big taker. He's not going to feel good about himself. So the best way to do chesed is in a way where you're offering kindness to somebody where they don't think you're doing them a favor. That's the opposite. They feel entitled. They feel it's you have to do it for them. That's the highest form of chesed. Says the author of Slabotka. Here the guy, he's on Toim Shabbos, he's on this organization and that tzedakah organization. But at the end of the day, there's going to be something lacking in the kindness that you do. You know what's going to be lacking in the kindness that you do? The recipient is going to feel embarrassed about it. And the recipient is going to feel embarrassed about something. Your chesed is lacking because you're not emulating Hashem in the pure sense. But the pasuk says in Yeshaya, "Umibesarcha lo tisalim." Don't ignore your own flesh. Which usually is understood to mean, don't ignore your wife, don't ignore your children, don't ignore your parents, don't ignore your family. So in practical terms, interesting. If somebody has tzedakah money, and they could give it to a stranger, they could give it to their family comes first. Now why does the family come first? So most people think it's because I have a greater responsibility to them. That's not the reason, says the author. The family comes first because when you give it to a stranger, there will be a certain feeling of uncomfortability about it because, you're giving me a freebie. But when you give your uncle, your aunt, your nephew, your niece, tzedakah, they don't feel so bad. Yeah, it's kimir. I'm entitled to it. It's from my uncle. He's mechuyev to give it to me. Mar Rabbi, and who feels the greatest feeling of entitlement that you owe me and you have to do it and it will not be embarrassed to take your kindness? Your wife. She's not going to feel ashamed to take kindness from you. She's going to feel entitled. Right now we're talking about the wife. We're trying to recover from the Wednesday night shiur, right? So, yes, a person could do tremendous acts of chesed, tremendous acts of giving and kindness, but they're all going to be lacking in some way. What are they going to be lacking? The giving in a way where the recipient is not embarrassed and doesn't feel a sense of shame. And therefore, says the author of Slabotka, Avraham Avinu performed many acts of kindness throughout his life. Incredible. But the act of kindness that sort of stands above all his other acts is the kindness he was able to do to Sarah, to bury her. Because there's no shame there, there's no embarrassment, she felt entitled to it. And in a way, in some dimension, that act most closely resembled the kindness of Hashem more than any other way. I'll just add one prat. Every morning we say in Peah, we talk about various forms of mitzvahs. Hachnasas orchim, bikur chaylim, hachnasas kala, Iyon Tefillah. Iyon Tefillah. What's Iyon Tefillah doing there? What's Iyon Tefillah doing there? What does it have to do with Chesed? The answer is, Iyon Tefillah has everything to do with Chesed. Why? Rashi says in Masechta Shabbos on Daf Kuf Mem Zayin, Amud Beis, that Iyon Tefillah is a form of Chesed. I could daven for someone to find a job, to find a shidduch, to have shalom, to have hatzlacha. And in a way, when you daven for someone's success, that's the highest form of chesed. Why? Because they don't know about it, and they don't experience any shame from receiving it. And in a way, the highest form of chesed is Iyon Tefillah. So what we're pointing out is that, yes, have you offered the person the greatest benefit? Maybe not. But in terms of how your chesed is a more perfect emulation of the ways of Hashem, when you show kindness to your immediate family, to your children, to your wife, now you have to have it in mind. If you're just doing it because you want to get supper, then it's also a good reason to do it, but it's not chesed. Chesed is to try to emulate the ways of Hashem. And when one is in the position to show chesed to their immediate family, realizing that you're able to show kindness without anybody feeling shame, where they feel they deserve it and have earned it, in a way that is the highest form of emulation of the ways of Hashem. And in that sense, the greatest act of chesed Avraham Avinu ever did was V'achar Kain Kavar Avraham Es Sarah Ishtai. Rabbi say, have a great Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.